Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we do the reading for you, basically. We take a whole bunch of information on important topics and boil it down.
Exactly, your shortcut. And today, we're focusing on something specific. Men's health, particularly in the 30s and, well, moving beyond that decade too.
Right.
We've gathered insights for the learner from quite a mix of places. We've got a clinical view on mental health, some solid medical info on screenings,
Okay.
a fitness blog talking about weight, which always comes up, plus real talk from a Reddit thread, and even urology advice on prostate health.
That's quite the range. Clinical, practical, personal experiences. I think this is where we find those aha moments, seeing how it all fits together.
Let's hope so.
Okay, let's dive in then. Where should we start?
How about mental and emotional well-being? Our source from the Integrated Care Clinic had some really powerful points on this.
Yeah, I saw that. They talk a lot about the cultural expectations, don't they? That pressure on men to, well, not show much emotion.
Precisely. The whole tough it out idea. It often means anger becomes the only kind of safe emotion to express, which is incredibly limiting.
And damaging, ultimately.
Definitely. And it affects whether men actually reach out for help. The clinic mentioned NIMH data,
Yeah.
showing men are just less likely to discuss their feelings and way less likely to seek help for mental health stuff compared to women.
It's funny how we frame strength, isn't it? Like, asking for help is seen as weakness.
But the clinic turns that on its head.
Yeah.
They argue that seeking therapy, for instance, isn't weakness at all. It's actually, they called it badass.
Uh-huh. I like that.
Yeah.
Courageous, right, taking charge.
Exactly. It takes real strength. And they also talk about social connection, needing more than just a romantic partner.
That really hit home for me. The idea that sometimes a guy's whole social life can end up revolving around his partner. And the clinic stresses how important it is for men to have their own friends, their own support system. That lone wolf thing, not always healthy.
Especially if you're dealing with anxiety or depression.
Yeah.
Isolation makes it so much harder.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, the clinic points out, we all have the same basic human needs, right? Love, safety, support, friendship, intimacy, a place to just talk openly.
Yeah.
That's universal, not gendered.
And that ties into the whole men don't cry myth they tackle.
Oh, absolutely. They were very clear. Crying is normal, it's human, it's actually cathartic. Bottling it all up causes problems down the line.
For sure. They also touched on that societal pressure, didn't they? The expectation to, settle down.
Yes, the marriage, house, kids pathway.
Right. And their point was you need to figure out if that's your path or just what society expects. Following the script without thinking can lead you somewhere you don't actually want to be.
It's about aligning with your own values,
Yeah.
basically. Some people might not want that traditional setup, and that's perfectly okay.
Okay. Important stuff. Now, shifting gears a bit, what about physical health? Prostate health came up.
It did. And the source, Desert Sky Urology, makes a really good case for thinking about it proactively, even in your 30s. It might seem early, but
It's about prevention, setting yourself up for the long run.
exactly.
Yep.
And the advice is pretty straightforward. First off, regular checkups, just basic, but crucial for catching things early.
Makes sense. What else?
Nutrition. They highlighted specific foods, think tomatoes, broccoli, nuts, things rich in antioxidants, and vitamins that seem to be good for prostate health.
No, eat your veggies. Got it.
Pretty much. And exercise, of course. That recommendation of 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity plus strength training,
Right.
they frame it like a shield. Good for everything, including the prostate.
Okay, the standard exercise advice, but with that specific angle.
Yeah, and interestingly, they mentioned yoga too. Not just for flexibility or stress,
Oh.
but potentially having positive effects on the prostate itself. Mind-body connection again.
And stress management was in there too.
Big time. Chronic stress seems to have links to prostate issues, so finding ways to manage it, meditation, mindfulness, whatever works for you is important.
Right, it all connects.
And lastly, sleep. Good quality, consistent sleep. It's foundational for overall health, and that includes prostate function. Don't skimp on sleep.
Okay, solid advice there. Now let's talk about something a lot of people notice in their 30s. Weight. It can feel harder to manage, right?
It often does. The NASM blog source we looked at really digs into this. They acknowledge those common feelings, feeling stiffer, recovery taking longer, more stress, sleep changes, and yeah, seeing the scale creep up.
So it's not just in our heads.
Not entirely.
Mm.
They talk about the idea that metabolism just tanks after 30. So maybe not quite that dramatic, but there are physiological changes. A key one is losing skeletal muscle mass.
Ah, okay. And muscle burns calories?
Exactly. Even at rest, Think of the Catch-McCardle formula for resting metabolic rate. It heavily factors in lean muscle. Less muscle means, well, a slightly lower resting metabolism. Your body's engine is a bit smaller.
Right, okay.
Plus, our muscle cells might get a bit less responsive to growth signals as we age. And that typical loss, like 3 to 8% muscle mass per decade after 30, adds up.
And hormones play a role too, I imagine.
They do. There's a gradual decline in reproductive hormones, testosterone for men, and mixed for women, plus human growth hormone. These shifts can make it a bit easier to store fat and can slightly lower metabolism too.
And just life gets in the way sometimes.
That's a big part of it. The blog notes how physical activity often peaks earlier, then tends to dip in the 30s. Work, family, it takes time. And fitness markers like VO2 max can start declining.
Okay. They mentioned something about DNA PK.
Yeah, that's some newer research, mostly in mice so far. It suggests this enzyme might be involved in fat storage and how well our mitochondria work as we age. But, it's early days for what that means for us practically.
Gotcha. But then there was that other study, Poncer.
Right. This was super interesting. Poncer et al. In 2021. They looked at a huge amount of data and basically challenged that whole idea of a big metabolic slowdown in middle age.
Really? So it doesn't just fall off a cliff?
Apparently not as much as we thought. Their findings suggest our total daily energy burn stays pretty stable from our 20s through our 60s.
Wow. So if it's not metabolism crashing, then what is causing weight gain for many people?
The implication is it's more about behavior, our food choices and how much we move, or maybe how much we don't move as life changes.
Which is kind of good news, in a way. Means we have some control.
Exactly. It puts the power back in our hands to some extent. And that leads into setting realistic goals. The blog stressed moving away from unrealistic shredded physiques or trying to hit your high school weight.
Yeah, probably not healthy or sustainable.
Right. They even mentioned a JAMA study suggesting that being slightly in the overweight BMI category might not be worse than normal weight, mortality-wise, and could even be better than underweight. BMI isn't the whole story.
So focus on a healthy weight you can actually maintain.
That's the key. Feeling good, having energy. And they gave practical diet advice. Balanced macros, fiber, limit saturated fats, get enough protein. They suggested around 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilo of body weight if you're moderately active.
Okay. Protein's important.
Yeah. And mostly whole grains for carbs, healthy fats. Keeping total fat under 30% of calories, saturated under 10%. Pretty standard healthy eating guidelines, but good reminders.
And tracking food, like using apps.
They mentioned food diaries or apps can be useful tools just for awareness, really. Understanding your own energy needs, seeing where calories are coming from if you're trying to create a deficit.
Right. Mindful eating.
And then the fitness routine. Again, sustainable is the word, the standard guidelines. 150, 300 minutes moderate activity or 75, 150 vigorous, plus strength training twice a week.
Which sounds like a lot, but they broke it down.
Yeah, they gave practical targets like aiming for 10,000, 12,000 steps a day, maybe sliding in 2 or 3 resistance sessions. Makes it feel more achievable.
Okay, that's the science and the advice. But what about real people? That Reddit thread must have had some interesting takes.
Oh, it was fascinating. Really raw, honest experiences from guys over 30 trying to stay healthy and fit.
What were the big themes?
Overwhelmingly. Discipline and consistency. So many people said it's not about motivation, it's about habit. Like brushing your teeth, you just do it.
Yeah, I saw that comparison a lot. Makes sense.
And another big one, staying fit is easier than getting fit, especially as you get older. Lots of warnings about how hard it is to lose a lot of weight later if you let it go.
Ooh, good motivator to keep at it. What about diet?
Huge emphasis on diet. The phrase, most weight loss happens in the kitchen, came up repeatedly. And practical tips, too, using rice cookers, Instapots, buying pre-portioned stuff like salmon from Costco to make healthy eating easier.
Convenience matters.
Absolutely. And finding activity you actually enjoy. It wasn't all gym workouts. People mentioned sports, yoga, climbing, even mixing exercise with video games, whatever keeps you moving.
That makes sense. If it feels like a chore, you won't stick with it.
Exactly. And a really important one, listen to your body.
Yeah.
Ease into things. Don't push too hard, too fast, especially in your 30s and 40s, because injuries can sideline you for ages.
Yeah, recovery takes longer.
Also, the idea that maintenance takes less effort than building muscle or fitness initially, that was kind of reassuring. People used everything, weights, cardio, body weight stuff, kettlebells. Lots of paths work.
Did lifestyle come up, like having kids or being single?
Yeah, some acknowledge that not having kids, for example, frees up more time. But even busy people found ways, often by making exercise non-negotiable, even if it was just 30 minutes.
Prioritizing it.
Right, and a lot of caution around fad diets. Focus on sustainable eating, cutting back on sugar and soda was a common, effective strategy for many.
Simple, but works. What about rest?
Definitely seen as important. Sleep, nutrition, low stress for recovery. Some debated scheduled rest days versus just working different muscles daily, but recovery itself was key. People also talked about substituting exercise for bad habits and really valuing the mental benefits, not just the physical. And underlying it all was mindset, self-discipline.
Makes sense. Anything else stand out?
The idea that it might be easier if you're active, younger, muscle memory, established habits. Caution about fitness influencers and unrealistic expectations.
Good point.
Someone mentioned getting hormones checked if you're doing everything right but struggling. Finding a workout buddy for accountability.
Classic advice.
Yeah, and specific diet things like focusing on protein, watching carbs, the impact of alcohol. Someone had the rule, never drink a calorie. Intermittent fasting came up too.
Lots and different strategies.
Tons. But the absolute drumbeat through almost every comment was consistency. Pick something reasonable and stick with it. That seemed to be the biggest predictor of success.
Wow. So bringing all this together, mental health, physical screenings, weight management, real-world discipline, what's the big picture?
I think it's that these things are deeply interconnected, aren't they? You can't really separate mental and physical well-being. They influence each other constantly.
Yeah, that's clear. And the need to be proactive, right? With screenings, with building healthy habits before problems arise.
Absolutely. And understanding weight management is complex. Yes, there are physiological shifts, but our choices, our behaviors have a huge impact. It's not just fate.
And that Reddit thread really hammered home the importance of just showing up. Discipline, consistency, finding sustainable habits. No magic bullets.
None at all. And remember, it gets personal. What works for one person might not work for another. It's about finding your path, what fits your life and values.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. After hearing all this, from the clinical advice to the lived experiences, what's one small thing, just one consistent change you could bring into your life starting today? Something that supports both your mental and physical health. Doesn't have to be huge.
That's a great takeaway. It's not about massive overhauls. It's about those small, steady steps that build up over time. That's how you create lasting well-being.
Exactly. It's a long game. Thanks for diving deep with us today.